This is a film about motherhood, for example, motherhood, and I want to talk about how important is to be a mother, how important is the love of the mother, of a mother. Okay, then you have to ask yourself, what is motherhood? What is, and you have to translate this in terms of action. Motherhood is, for example, a mother always protects his kid. So you have a concept, an abstract concept like motherhood, and then you try to find the action which represents that abstract concept. For example, protection. And then you arrive to the character. You have a protective mother. No? Then, so you have a transit. You begin with an idea, abstract idea, and then you have an action related to that idea, and finally you have a character who represents the action, or who performs the action. Okay? So we are going to, we have the need to develop or to build this character who represents the action which corresponds with your idea. That's the way. And then you have to build a character.
Okay, so here we are in the theme of our presentation, which is building a character. And this graphic here, that is,
Wow.
wow, yeah, look at this one. So here we are talking about, I guess, it could be about all this searching of the information and then reducing, how do you build a character? Like, what do I need to know? How do I know I want to make a film about X theme, but then how do I really start building a character? Why is knowing that character or the main character so important? And how do I start building the character even before I know the story? Or do I need to know the story before the character?
Okay, maybe it sounds like an exaggeration, but a character is a trait, I think. It's a one trait.
Okay.
A character is a one trait, a main trait, a main passion. For example, motherhood. If you want to represent a mother, maybe you can think of protection. So motherhood is protection, just that. It's not only protection, but you have a center, a main trait, which allows you to dramatize the whole thing, the whole story. So the search for a character is a search for a trait, for an adequate trait, the main trait. Listen, many times people ask you, how is your character? And you start to saying, oh, he's tall, he's very handsome, delicate, or very whatever. Okay, it's good for characterization, but the first thing you have to know is this trait, this single trait, which represents your theme, really, your theme, the thing you want to talk about.
So this would be the essence.
Yes, the character is an essence. I think so.
Okay.
It's an essence. I see. It's like in this picture you have the essence here. When you talk about wisdom, you have wisdom when you can talk about essence. So you have to find the essence of your character.
Okay.
Not information about your character. When you have many traits about your character, you have information about your character, general information. You can talk about your character as it were example, if I want to talk about Maria, who's Maria? I mean, who's Maria? Well, I thought, oh, Maria is a director. She's Colombian. She's a director, etc. But if I try to make a movie about you, I have to build your essence. Who is essentially Maria? Who is Maria in her essence? You see?
Okay, and so this process of finding the essence, like again this sign here, I guess we go from the essence to the information, to the essence to the information. I mean, we have to go all the way back and forth in order to, because the details are also very important to build that character. I know, for instance, that when I'm directing actors and we are improvising with an imaginary magazine, you can say, pick up the magazine. And when an actor picks up a magazine, you don't believe there's a magazine. But when the actor really sees the magazine and thinks about, okay, this is Semana, and the article I'm reading is the one about the scandal of Odebrecht, and I'm reading a paragraph about something specific, and I can see the subtitle, I can see the title, and I can imagine. It's amazing how at that moment the object that the actor is looking at really becomes real. It's not a, so in a way, all those details are necessary in order for the actor to believe he's really looking at a magazine. So how do we do this in the building of the character? How do we maintain the essence or even be free of exploring the essence? And yet, of course, we have to look at those details, and how do we make up these details? It's how can we inspire ourselves to create, to build this?
Well, I think essence is a concrete thing. Because in the example, in your example, when you say, okay, this is it, this is definitely the action I want the actors to perform, you are using details so you can find the main action or the main thing, the nucleus, and the essence you want to communicate. So, as you said, you have details, you have generality, and you have an essence. But finally, that the essence is a feeling, you know. It's a mental idea, but the feeling you have, that convince you that you are in the center spot, in the truth of the thing. No?
Okay, and what kind of exercises or what kind of ways do you help as a script doctor, writers, to come up with ideas to build a character? What can I do? Like, if I'm here listening to this chat, and then I want to go home and I want to write and build, start building my character. I love this idea of exploring and having coffees and kind of like letting my imagination go to find the essence of what my character is about. And I'm sure this takes a while. But then once I have this essence, what can I do?
Okay, what do you feel that, I mean, there is a magical question, which is, how do you feel about this? For example, do you feel your character? Do you feel it? Do you feel that the thing, that your premise is the right one? Do you feel it? That is what you want to say, what is that you need to say. So feeling, I think feeling is a very indicative thing in order to know that I am in the right way. Know what you think, but what you feel. And then you have to be able to say in words. You have to you have to be able to transform this feeling in a word. For example, I need to talk about inequality or loneliness. Loneliness. I am sure that my character is able to transmit the things I feel about loneliness. Okay, if we agree that you and me we are writing, or you are writing and I'm working with you, if we agree in that first we are talking about loneliness. Secondly, my character is the proper character to talk about loneliness, and then I have a premise which said, this is what I want to say about loneliness. Then we have a very good starting point.
Okay, and then once we have the starting point.
Okay, and then we have to create a story, a plot. We have to build a situation, a world, in which I can talk about loneliness. For example, how can I talk about loneliness in Colombia, in Bogotá? Which plot allows me to talk about loneliness in Bogotá? Maybe it could be a rock concert or I don't know, whatever, a park or the Transmillennium. So the way I look at this is like this. We have an essence which is very related to the theme I want to explore, and we have circumstances. We have things I invent, which is plot. And then you have to be faithful, first of all, to the essence of your writing, because this is the nucleus. And then you have the circumstance you can change. You could change, and you don't have to be so faithful to your circumstance, because many people think a movie is a chain of circumstances, and this is not the core of a movie. The core of the movie is the thing which is related to the theme you want to explore, and is related to what you feel. So we have another, several days having coffees together, and we could build circumstances together, and we could change circumstances and create new ones, etc.
So I want to recap to make sure I'm understanding. So basically, the looking for this essence, which the poster before showed us, was allowing ourselves to wander around and finally arriving to this which is unbreakable in a way. This is my commitment, this is what I want to do, and that is untouchable. Because it's true that maybe in a screenplay or while we're writing, we go in so many directions that we might lose ourselves. So having this core clear and unbreakable will allow us to explore in a more freely way the circumstances, which are basically what Miles was also talking about, our willingness to kill our babies. Like the parts that we think, the scenes or maybe the circumstances that we feel are really important for the script, and then maybe somebody might say, well, actually I don't think that scene works, or you can change the scene into another thing. So this would be equivalent of the circumstances you are talking about, and the ones we might have to let go of, but never let go of our core essence, because then we lose the film we want to make, and we have to be very faithful to our essence.
Well, our production could say we don't have a plane, we have a car. we don't have money for a aeroplane, but we have a car, and this is a different circumstance, and you have to build your circumstance around the same essence.
Okay, and how do you, like in mathematics, yes?
No, it's like Netflix, please.
No, it's that I actually wanted to
Okay.
ask you a question. Going back to your mathematical background,
Okay.
is there like any experience that you had in mathematics? I feel you are somebody that helps us, that gives me the hand to carry me through something that might seem very complex into a simple way. Is there any moment that math, something like this happened to you in math?
No, okay. It's just this is a very, very complicated theorem in mathematics, in functional analysis. And when I was studying mathematics, well, me and my friends were wondering what it was, and we were waiting for his theorem for months, and then we had a good, very good professor who explained us the theorem, and it was like this, very simple, because as he was a sage, he knew a lot about mathematics. He could explain deep, complicated thing using a simple drawing. So I think I as a script doctor, I try to picture myself the whole structure of your story, and then I try to distinguish the main things from the lateral things, and then I would say maybe you have a problem with your main character, because as I said, the main problem is in your main character and not in your plot. For example, it's very important to analyze, is to separate things in a structure. So you have problems which are related to the main character, or maybe the relation in between main character and plot, and so on. So I try to have an objective view of the problem, like a doctor. No?
So
you have a liver problem and not an eye problem.
Do you find it's very common for script writers do you find it's very important for script writers to have other people read their scripts, and the work like with the script doctor is very important in this sense?
Well, I think so. I hope so.
Well, could we have the next slide also?
Yes, please.
Because there was something we wanted to talk about.
Well, next slide, please. Okay.
¿Nos muestra la otra diapositiva? Thank you.
Okay, this is a very, very good definition of story I wanted to share. What do you think about this definition? No, a story is a record to have somebody, I think is very important, deals with danger. This is a definition of a story. You have a story when you have somebody, and this somebody has to deal with danger. Danger is the conflict. Conflict is danger. You have a conflict when you have in danger. So if I want to meditate right here, but I can do my meditation, I am in danger. My meditation is in danger. So a conflict. I think this is a very, very profound definition of conflict, because which is danger for you is not which is danger for me. Everyone has things or areas in which danger could be present. You see? So if you want to build your character, you have to build your character and your zone, your danger zone. No? And you have to know what dangers could be have in your story.
And how many, is it dangerous for a screenwriter? Like, what are the dangers a screenwriter as a person might have to confront while writing?
I don't know. What dangers as a writer?
Yes, like, do we have to be dangerous in an emotional way? How much of ourselves should we try to give into a script?
Well, to write is to be in danger. No? Are you not in danger here when you try to write? You are in danger. And danger also, another danger I think is the relation between objective point of view of things and subjective point of view of things. Because when you write, well, Miles said that, you talked about that. When you write, you are putting yourself into your writing, and you are using your subjective point of view about things. And then you have to relate this to an objective point of view. And you have the danger, for example, that your subjective point of view is not the right one. Or maybe, as you said, you want everybody to see things like you do. So danger is in every moment when you're writing.
Okay, and could we have the next screen, please? Can you go ahead?
Okay. This is two persons in danger.
Okay, why? Could you tell us more about this?
No, I like very much this photography. It was in Venezuela in 19. The photograph Hector Rondon won a prize, a Pulitzer Prize, and it was a coup in Venezuela, and then the religious person tried to save a soldier. And the thing is, when you look at a photo like this, well, you have two dangers in it. You have danger, you can lose your life is in danger, and your belief also are in danger. Your integrity, like a religious person, is in danger. So when you write, you have to consider two types or two kinds of danger. The external danger, you have external danger there because you can lose your life and lost your life, and then you have an internal danger which is related to your values, and the values are in the core of your character, in the essence of your character. When you have a character, you have a value, a main value. For example, this is about not only about gravity, but about maybe not only courage, which is external, compassion. So you are talking about compassion and courage. If you talk just about courage, you have like an external thing, maybe a situation, a circumstance. But when you consider that you are talking about also you're talking about compassion, so you have the whole character, which have an essence, a compassionate person, not only a courageous person.
I wanted to say one thing that I just wanted to say. I like to work a lot with images as well. Sometimes they just come out of the blue. They don't necessarily have a link with the story, but I find images very powerful. And I always carry a little notebook to write down these images, because even though the image is not necessarily at the beginning linked with the story, I always find that images tell you something. And even in scripts afterwards, the images, I find images are a very powerful tool and powerful exploration to look deep into something. They're like a calling of something you can look into.
Well, I think the power of that image is precisely that. That image, concentrates the two ideas. No? If this man weren't a religious person, you weren't you won't have the power of this image. So I think sometimes we have an image and we have a complete idea of structure, complete essential idea of a dramatic structure in one image. No? I mean, this is a story. This is not a story. There is a story in that image.
Yeah. You know what happens with these characters after this photograph was taken?
No. Well, the photograph won a prize.
Yes, but no.
No, yes, I know. I don't know. I don't know. No.
Okay.
No. Maybe the guy died. Maybe I think so. He died, and he was a very, very important religious person of the zone. It was in a very local, in a very tiny town outside Caracas.
Wow, that's very unique. So.
Sorry. So I think when you are looking for an image, you are not looking only for a beautiful image. You are looking for an essential image, a dramatic essential image. Sorry.
Okay. So could we have the next screen? And this. What about the main character? Is this? What can you tell us about this and the building of a main character?
I love this cartoon. Well, this is the weird thing about the main character. This is the main character. Those are the things you have to know about your main character. Firstly, you have to know how is his main trait. For example, is I don't know. How do you think about this guy? How is it? How is he? Alcoholic. Okay. So first dimension, he is alcoholic. Second dimension, what he is looking for?
Motherhood problem.
Pardon me?
Motherhood problem.
Yes. He's looking for protection, for nutrition, for a great mother figure. Huh? He's looking for love. Huh? Someone who could feed him like a child. And why is she looking for this mother? Why?
Loneliness.
What?
Loneliness.
Loneliness? What else?
Feeling of loss. Maybe
Okay.
she died.
He needs love. He feels like a child. So, sorry.
Maybe he needs presence and attention and care.
Maybe he needs presence and attention, and he's like a baby crying, like crying baby. So you have to build all of this if you want to know your character. You know, the child figure is the psychological part of your character. Your psychological essence of your character. The woman part is maybe the interior objective of your character. And then the more important thing is he's an alcoholic and he's going to look for alcohol in the story. So you have this dimension and you have to build all that dimension for your character.
There was, well, we had also thought about tools to build character, like what inspires you? What do you feel? What advice could you give us or about who inspires you? Like how to get inspired for a character?
Well, it depends upon the type of person you are. For example, I am a very, introverted type of person. So I get inspired by my feeling or by my feeling about things I see or I read. For example, a poem or an image or a movie I see. But what inspires you?
Well, I feel like I'm a little bit of a thief when it comes to screenwriting. I like to, if there's a scene I really like, I sometimes just take it. And I see how this scene, I can fit it in my screenplay. A lot of times I'm writing and I don't know what to write, so I go read a book. Short stories are very important for me. I like to listen to music and maybe I don't know, even if I find a line that is really well written, I like to kind of like put it into one of my characters because it's already better written than how I can write it. There's a poster of Picasso that said that the good artists imitate and the best artists steal. And then Banksy, the graffiti, crossed out Picasso and put his name, Banksy, on the placard. And I find this is true. I think that it's very important for me, it was a great revelation to understand that I didn't have to come up with everything because my mind just doesn't, well, my mind is not that fertile, but I get inspired by books, poems, like what you said, images, short stories.
And what's your inspiration? What inspires you?
Well,
Everything?
well, yes.
Music. Music. Well, films, maybe.
Yes.
Politics. I don't know.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember giving a class and a lot of the time would be spent on the students just sitting on the floor, lying down like this, and we would play some music and just have them write images and see what happens. More than theory, like just exploring. But we have 2 videos that we wanted to see. So do we have time for the videos?
Yes.
Questions and answers.
Okay. Okay, we have 2 videos.
See?
You want this?
Pardon. Voyons. Ce matin, ta navette spatiale s'est écrasée sur une planète qui t'est inconnue. J'espère seulement qu'elle appartient au système vers lequel tu te dirigeais. En entrant dans l'atmosphère, la navette s'est désintégrée. Et toi, éjecté avec ton siège, tu t'es retrouvé à plusieurs milles à l'ouest. Sur les 3 heures d'autonomie en oxygène que t'offre ta combinaison, il ne te reste que 3 minutes et 33 secondes. C'est le temps que tu as pour arriver jusqu'à une capsule qui a été éjectée de la navette peu de temps avant toi. Vérifier le bon état des réservoirs d'oxygène, envoyer la balise de position et attendre que quelqu'un vienne te chercher avant que ton oxygène ne s'achève, en supposant qu'il y en ait. Ah, rappelle-toi avant de te réveiller, il y a cette chose qui est entrée dans ta combinaison. Tu essayes de ne pas donner de l'importance à la bestiole. Bien qu'il y ait à peine quelques minutes, tu as failli crier quand elle est entrée dans tes sous-vêtements et que tu as senti son corps froid et gluant bouger entre tes couilles. Tu n'as pas intérêt à perdre ton calme, sinon tu vas consommer plus d'air. En ce moment, il te reste 2 minutes et 33 secondes d'oxygène. Non, 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 merde. Je crois que je me suis trompé. En réalité, tu n'es pas sur cette planète. Tu es en France pendant la Première Guerre mondiale. Oui, c'est ça. Tu fais partie d'un petit peloton de 3 artificiers. Tu sais que tu es le plus malin, mais aussi que les autres ont plus de couilles que toi. Il y a quelques heures, vous avez placé plusieurs charges de dynamite comme convenu sur la voie ferrée. Tu es allé te mettre à couvert de façon à activer les bombes. Et en même temps, cet idiot de Guillaume a marché sur une mine qui les a tués, lui et Claude. Et t'a laissé toi, sans jambes. Si tu veux crier, je le comprendrai. Réagis à présent. Avec ce que tu perds comme sang, tu perdras conscience dans 1 minute et 33 secondes. 3 minutes après, tu seras mort. Tu as juste le temps d'activer le détonateur des bombes qui détruiront les rails sur lesquels, dans 5 minutes, passera un convoi avec 2000 prisonniers. Ton action peut leur sauver la vie. Même si tu ne la vois plus, sûr que l'idée de penser que Maria se trouve entre les prisonniers de ce train te donne des forces. Non, 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 ça n'est pas ça, merde. Je crois que tu n'es pas sur le front. Non, bien sûr. C'est ta barque qui vient de sombrer, oui, c'est ça. Tu viens de faire naufrage et maintenant tu es entraîné par le fond. Tu pêchais à des heures indues afin de gagner plus d'argent pour les cadeaux de Noël de Lily. Tu étais seul et personne ne sait ce qui vient de t'arriver. Quand ta barque a coulé, un bout s'est accroché à ta cheville et t'a entraîné avec lui. Tes mains sont glacées et tu ne peux pas te détacher. Tu as bien essayé, mais c'est impossible. Tu commenceras à te sentir mal dans 33 secondes, à respirer de l'eau dans moins de 2 minutes et à alimenter les poissons d'ici 5 minutes environ. Ah, j'oubliais. Ta barque tombera dans un gouffre d'ici environ 1 minute. Si tu ne te détaches pas avant, tu seras mangé par des poissons abyssaux. Essaye de ne pas penser à Lily. Ça ne ferait que t'enrager. l'astronaute qui n'arrivera pas à l'oxygène. Non, tu es le soldat qui se vide de son sang et ne pourra pas activer le détonateur. Attends, oublie ce que je viens de dire. Tu es le marin qui coule sans rémission. Si tu es l'astronaute, tu n'arriveras pas à atteindre la capsule. Si tu es le soldat, tu n'arriveras pas au détonateur. Si tu es le marin, tu n'arriveras pas à la surface. Putain de merde! Non, 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 je me trompe tout le temps. Ça n'est rien de tout ça. C'était simplement ton premier baiser.
Elle était si jolie que je n'osais l'aimer. Elle était si jolie, je ne peux l'oublier. Elle était trop jolie quand le vent l'emmenait. Elle fuyait ravie et le vent me disait: elle est bien trop jolie. Et toi, je te promets l'aimer toute une vie. Tu ne pourras jamais. Oui, mais elle est partie. C'est bête, mais c'est vrai. Elle était si jolie. Je n'oublierai jamais.
Dès que tu retrouveras ton souffle, donne-lui un autre baiser.
C'est l'automne et je pleure souvent. Aujourd'hui c'est l'automne qu'il est loin le printemps. Dans le parc tout frissonne, les feuilles au vent mauvais.
Yeah.
Voiceover. Voiceover. It's a very good short film, I think. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Very simple idea. Terror of a first kiss. The terror of the first kiss. This is it. Very simple, very essential idea for us, the male public here.
Oh wow, I hadn't thought of the terror of the first kiss. I thought more of the power of the breath of life.
Also, because when you have a powerful idea, you have many levels. You construct many levels, I think, and you could have many levels of interpretation.
But I love this the fear of the first kiss. What is the name you gave it again? The terror of the first kiss.
The terror of the first kiss. Have you felt that? The terror of the first kiss? Yeah. Well, and then when you are in front of terror, you can imagine things. No? If you have a good imagination, you could imagine this very dangerous situation. But as you see, you have a main character who is a boy, main trait, he has never kissed a girl. He's a virgin. And then and you have a conflict. How can I kiss a girl for the first time? This is it. And this very simple idea would be your storyline give you the opportunity to build several situations. For example, you could have another flick, you know, science fiction as well, and a Western situation. Those are just circumstances.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I really like your definition of the film because I think it embraces everything that we've talked about. So if you were the script doctor for voiceover, you would have first arrive into the essence of terror of the first kiss,
Yeah.
and then the circumstances would have been the astronauts,
Yeah.
World War II or World War One, and
Sure.
the
Well,
Singing.
and I could do a pitch by saying, you know, I want to talk about the terror of the first kiss in a spectacular way. This is my short film.
Yeah, that would be a great pitch. I'm sure the people, the producers, or whoever you were pitching it for would probably be curious about it. So in order to get to this simplicity, we had to go through all this process, all these many copies.
Yes. It's like you know, declaring our love to a girl. We have to go to the point. I love you. This is it. And then you have to build your circumstances. You know, I am a very good person. I don't know. I'm going to protect you. I have read very good books. And I know very much about cinema, etc.
Okay. Okay, so thank you everybody, and thank you Frank for being such
And
a
thank you,
great
thank you
exponent.
everybody for being here.
Oh, well, we want to take these 10 more minutes to ask questions, and are there questions that the audience might have they want to give to ask Frank or Miles or? I can be the one who gives the.
In the back.
Good morning. My question is, war is full of histories. Every kind of histories. Which histories of everything, of everyone, has the merit, the reason to be on the screen? Yes?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Every day has a lot of histories.
Okay.
Every day has a lot of decisions, has a lot of ideas. Which ideas, which decisions has that point, that reason for being a movie?
I would say any of them. Do you guys agree? Any decision, any day.
I want to make sure I understand the question. Is your question, how can we know what films of all the stories that are to be told, the ones that are worth being in the screen?
Yes, on what idea one idea has the point to be, for example, a voiceover. Yes?
How we can decide how idea in the day can be an option to create a story? Yes?
Yes.
Very, very difficult question. If we knew that, we were very rich, I think. I don't know, in this short film, what I like is, I mean, there is, for for example, one thing is that you are talking about the first kiss thing in a very, very unusual way. You are, you are showing a war, you are showing the moon, and then there is some originality, I think. But it depends, no? Like I think you always talk about the same thing, and it's all related to maybe point of view, originality. I don't know. What do you think?
I think any story is worthwhile telling. The difficulty of the story we choose to do, I think first of all we have to make sure that we really like the story, because it's a lot of work and a lot of emotional process that we're going to go through. But if you really believe in your story, then you must write it. I think that the difficulty comes and where we have to be very perseverant is in being capable of simplifying and finding the truth in the story we want to tell. In finding, in being very well articulated and precise and focused in what we want to tell. And that process is hard. But I think it's a very beautiful and challenging process to go through. And if you can be very articulate and make sure that your idea is really there and faithful to the essence of what Frank was saying, I think you have a beautiful story to communicate to others.
And I just want to say, as a fan of film, because these days I am not much of a filmmaker, I am more of a fan of film, that I think any decision, any day, could make an excellent film. Maybe just a short film, but maybe a feature film. I mean, a first kiss, this is the simplest thing in the world, but this is something everyone can relate to, that everyone can understand. The way your heart beats, the way the intensity of that moment, especially as a young child who has never experienced this before. You start sweating, your heart starts racing. And this is a perfectly ordinary thing. So anything, I think.
In order to understand the construction or the building of a character, how do you find the voice of your main character or of your key character?
A difficult one also. It's a very long process, I think. It's a very, very long process. It's a process where you ask yourself a lot of things, and then in which you commit errors, a lot of errors. And then, I don't know, I think it began with, or it begins with feeling. You start feeling your character, and you can, you start talking like your character, feeling like your character, and you come to know how he decides things. A character is, some people say, a character is, you have a character when you have a way of deciding. So you have the voice when you know how he reacts, how he decides in front of some circumstance. That's the way I feel.
Sometimes you try to communicate so many things that you lose yourself. So how do you realize you have lost the essence you were trying to communicate?
So your question is, how do you make sure you don't lose your essence after you explore so much?
I think you have to ask yourself, what are you writing for your script? Why why I'm writing this, what I'm writing this, why is this important to me? And the answer permits you to know the very central point of your writing. And your character is the representation of this central point, the central essence. So you, maybe you have to put yourself in this essence. You have to put yourself, and you have to transform in this character, and you have to be your main character, and you have to be outside this main character, contemplating this essence. I don't know, but you have to have the certainty that you are talking about a thing you care about. I think this is the answer I could give.
I think that stopping, knowing how to stop, can be a very revolutionary movement. Being capable of writing and writing and writing and then stopping and really going back to the basics. I find that screenwriting is exploring and stopping, going back to the center, going back to your essence, and in stillness, trying to see if what you are or trying to feel or be connected, is this what I really want to do? Is this what I want to talk about? And the question, what am I talking about, is not a question that is resolved at the beginning and then you never ask yourself this question again. My experience is I always have to go back to this question over and over again. And the art of film for me is being able to stay faithful to this essence, because and it's okay if we're not always faithful. I mean, it's hard. That's the mastery. But it's as being capable of stopping and saying, what am I talking about here? And then how are my characters really talking about this? And then if I'm directing the film, how is my camera talking about this? What is it that I'm talking about? And it's a negotiation that goes back and forth. Movement, stop. Movement, stop.
I would just add, again, as a fan of movies, that movies with, think about dialogue. So, a lot of movies that have bad dialogue that you know when you're watching, like this is not entertaining, because they're throwing information at you. It's just words and words and words, data, 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 stuff that the filmmaker wants you to know that is putting in the mouth of their characters without asking, why is the character saying this? Does this move the story forward? So maybe a helpful exercise could be, look at all this information that you think is too much. Maybe make a list or a map of that information and cross up, does this move the story forward? No, gone. Does this move the story forward? No, gone. Does this serve the scene? Does this keep the scene moving? Does this keep the story moving? Yes, keep it. That's what I think.
I mean, it's like, I think it's a little like discovering a little bit of yourself in a character. You see? Discovering a little bit of yourself. You have to feel you are there, here and there. That's a key moment.
I think being able to have insight is so difficult, and it's also so precious, because I agree so much with what you say. When you can recognize yourself in a character, you have empathy, and you can cry. And then if you have empathy, most likely the audience will have empathy. Like, and trusting your feelings, like that if you really feel something, it's probably true.
Yeah, if your audience is in tears, you probably have a good movie on your hands. Yeah, and Maria, I just wanted to add, Maria mentioned stillness. So for me, a lot of the best movies are movies with very little dialogue or very little spoken information. So they can tell the story through just the setting for the scene, or maybe just the sound of what's going on. We had another question in front here.
Here. Hi, my question is for Frank. I believe that having a script doctor is really important for your screenplay. But here in Colombia, we don't tend to include the script doctor, maybe for ignorance or whatever. My question is, it's a very relative question, but how much can a script doctor cost, you know? Because sometimes we don't include that in our budget for ignorance or whatever, you know. And I know it's a very relative question that, you know, the price of a script doctor can have very different ways to approach. But how much can be like this minimum figure that you must have to approach a script doctor?
It's a very difficult question. You know, here it is my wife. She's sitting here in front, and she's trying to answer this question for me. Well, I mean, in terms of the results, I think it's not a very high cost, I think. Maybe, I don't know. It depends on the job you make with the writer. And it varies between, you know, if you want to start your work with script doctor, and you have, I'm talking about dollars, I don't know, it could begin in $1,000 to, depends on how long do you work, several thousand, it depends. Or you could have a little analysis of your argument, and then you have a very, very specific analysis, and then you can have that for maybe $100 or less. It depends. But I think, well, the way I see it is script doctoring is a very pleasant and useful place for discussing and creating together and seeing, you know, your creature develop. It's a very particular personal approach, you know.
Okay, guys, I just want to ask about if you think that there is any difference in screenwriting between an independent thing or a commercial thing. Because I just think of the poor guy that had to write the script for the Emoji Movie, for example, where something is being made independently and it's very beautifully done, but it has no audience to it, you know? So I want to ask you, there is a difference between a screenwriting for a commercial thing and an independent thing. Success versus something really well made and not being well received.
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances you're in. But I think that the most important, either for commercial or non-commercial, is that you can sympathize with what you are writing somehow. So let's say I am called by somebody to write, I don't know, a television series or something that's not my original idea, and they want me to write it. So I think that for me, in order to do a good job, I have to find, again, empathy and something in it that I really, really like. I don't necessarily think that commercial equivalents boring and superficial. I think that the interesting is to find in the superficiality that you might think of, or boringness, something that is meaningful to you. And then when you're writing your personal script, well, it's a director once said, the director of 2 Back Penny Lane once said, I think he's called Montgomery Clift, that it was always worthwhile to do the film you want to do. Because if you're doing a film because you think it's going to be commercial but you don't like it, you might you might end up with a film that is not commercial and you hate having done that film because you don't identify with that film in any bit. So you feel really bad about it. But if you shoot or if you write a film that you really want to do, if it's not a commercial success, it doesn't matter because you really did something you wanted to do. And then if you have to write things because we all need to make money in order to live, which is of course, then we find a way to connect with our work. And that way it will be interesting and fun. And I think people are hiring us so the film, the television, the short, the story, the book, whatever, is interesting. And it's a lot nicer to work on something that is interesting than something that is not.
Okay, last question.
You told that screenplay is not, you can do it, you can't do it with like circumstance, yes. But I did a screenplay about circumstance that I had, or something that I thought when I saw something in the street, yes. And then I did some structure about that circumstance, yes. And what is the relation about all these circumstance, yes. And that was like the structure, yes. And it was like a math exercise, yes. Doing this circumstance can be the first one, then the second one, and it was like me thinking, and it was my life. So it was something that can be all in the same story. So, well, it was my experience. I don't know, and it was just successful. I think the screenplay was more successful than the movie. Yes, the short I did. That was my experience. I don't know what you can tell about that experience.
So what is the question exactly? You were just wondering if this is a good kind of exercise to do or no?
Yes, that Frank told that the screenplay is not about moments, about circumstance, no? And I'm telling that was what I did, no? So what do you think about that experience I had?
So, I want to make sure we understand. So basically you're saying if Frank was talking about the circumstances are the parts that you can change in a film, you made a film, a short film or a screenplay you wrote based on those circumstances and not the essence, right? And what is that?
Yes, that was like the essence. Yes, that circumstance.
Your question is, can you begin from the circumstances and not from the essence? Is that the question?
That was my experience.
When you made the short?
Yes.
Short film?
Yeah, when I made the screenplay of the short.
Okay. Yes. Well, I think you're true. Can be that way, but in the, I mean, I think yes and yes, but if you begin with circumstances, you end with essence as well. You have to have both sides. Not always you begin with essence, but you need essence because a story is a relation between essence and circumstance, you know? So finally, when you consider your short film, maybe you feel yourself you are saying something about certain essence, I think. Do you feel, do you feel that you have only circumstances? What's the question?
No, it was like you saying.
Okay.
Then you find the essence of all these things.
Okay. Yes, every writer has a method, has his way, but they have to, my opinion is that you have to consider both things, and you have to find the structure between one and the other. You see? Even when you begin with just a plot, you have a plot, you don't know how this plot is saying, but sooner or later you have to ask yourself what is I am saying. You know? Okay.
So I think that's about all we have time for today, unfortunately. We are going to have the second of these talks on September 9th. Is that correct?
September 9th, yes, but we're confirming that.
Confirming the date?
Yeah.
Still? Okay, so we're not sure about the date, but the subject of the next talk is going to be wardrobe and makeup, correct? Which sounds very trivial, but wardrobe and makeup has a lot more to do with the structure of a film than you might think. So please stay tuned for the announcements, which will go out shortly, and let's give a big round of applause to Maria Gamboa and Frank Baez for being here. Thank you very much.
Bueno, entonces, volviendo al español, muchas gracias por haber venido. El próximo es el 16, la próxima charla es el 16 de septiembre. Y bueno, esperamos que haya sido una experiencia productiva para ustedes. Y mil gracias María, mil gracias Frank, gracias Miles. Andrea Gordillo, que es la asesora, bueno, la coordinadora de formación y promoción de la Comisión Fílmica. Y yo soy Angélica Clavijo, coordinadora de la Comisión Fílmica de Bogotá. Entonces, bienvenidos y bueno, que les vaya muy bien, linda tarde. Gracias a todos.
Thank you for all who are coming to class. Look forward to seeing you in class.